Okay, you guys, welcome back. This is Morgan Zeggers from Young Americans Against Socialism, highlighting another amazing survivor story. This is a story of courage, of determination, of sacrifice, and honestly, it's like a thriller because part of her story is the moment her assassin sent by the leader of the communist country that was sent to kill her, the moment he points the gun at her face, what does she do? She goes to the gospel and she changes this man's heart. I don't want to give too much away. I know I just kind of like teased a little bit of it right there, but let's just give you her bio and then we'll get right on into the conversation with this fantastic woman. Virginia Prodan is an international human rights attorney, a sought after international keynote speaker, and a published author at Tyndale House Publishers, Victory consultant, and she's the host of a podcast called Courageous Leadership. Born and raised in socialist and communist Romania, she graduated from Bucharest Law School, and as an attorney, Virginia dared in socialist Romania to defend religious and human rights cases, exposing the dictator to the world. For this act of treason, because that's treason in that country, she was kidnapped, beaten, tortured, placed under house arrest, and came within seconds of being executed under the orders of the dictator himself. After being exiled as a political refugee to the United States, and she learned English once she got here, Virginia graduated from SMU Law School in Dallas, Texas, with a Dr. JD degree and a Master of Law degree. Now, Virginia Prodan's compelling story of courage in the face of intimidation and even death on behalf of others is a testament to her wavering faith in a God who delivers. Her memoir, Saving My Assassin, was published by Tyndale House Publishers. Virginia speaks in the U.S. and around the world. You will be inspired by her confidence and courage in the Lord. Virginia trains and equips others about the cruelty of socialism, how to fight for freedom, how to unleash the overcomer in you to live a life of significance by design. Virginia aims to change 1 million lives by 2031. As the host of Courageous Leadership, her podcast, she helps people to discover the reality of socialism, the hidden potential of the freedom of capitalism, and how to accomplish your goals, achieve what matters most, and keep America free. Let's get right into it because it's an amazing, amazing story, and I want you guys to learn as much as you can. I will give one quick shout out, though. She has an amazing book, as I mentioned in her bio, called Saving My Assassin. She changed the heart of the man pointing the gun at her face, who was a true believer of the communist regime and thought he was doing a good thing by going to kill her. She went right to the Bible, and she started speaking it out loud, and it changed his heart. And he wrote an entire chapter in her book about what it was like to escape this communist country, to go through these challenging times. Her assassin, would-be assassin, wrote a chapter in this book. So the book is already on the way for me. I will be reading the book. I encourage all of you to go read the book. I don't promote books lightly because some of them are just pointless. Some of them are for people to make money. Who knows? I do not just promote any free book that's sent my way. I bought this book myself. I will be reading this book, and I encourage you, if you're a parent, I encourage you to read it to your kids. I encourage everyone to read it. Now, let's get into this interview. Let's get started.
We have lots of things in common. Your father was a Marine.
Yep, he's in the military, yeah.
Yeah, and my son-in-law is a Marine, and my son is an Air Force graduate. He is a rescue pilot in the United States Air Force.
Oh, that's
And
amazing. Where do they live now?
one lives in DC. Where do you live?
I live in Arizona. I have a house in Texas, and my dad's in the reserves now, the Army Reserves out of Utah.
Uh-huh. Well, when you come to Dallas, I would love to see you.
I will definitely let you know. I go there often. I have a house in Bernie, Texas, right above San Antonio.
Mhm.
So that's currently technically home, but I would love to get started. And for
Now,
me,
I want to
we were
mention one thing.
oh
No
yeah.
matter what I'm going to say, I am not going to be able to cover what this book is all about.
Oh, for
It's,
sure. And if
yeah,
we will
uh,
definitely send the link to
yes.
everybody and we're going to
Mhm.
include that so
It's
that people
gonna
can
be,
listen.
and the reason I will be talking about is the reason is that my assassin was a communist. And I don't know if you read the book, but he wrote a chapter in my book. And in the book, he explained how the communists capture his soul and make a horrible person to kill and do all kind of things. And it's so important for people to read because they have no idea. They have no idea.
I hope everybody that listens to this, and I will continue to spread it. I do a lot of college campus speeches, and so I'll be sure to bring it up there as well so that all the students can hear about it. All right, well, we're recording and we're ready to get started. If you could give a quick intro for just to kind of set the stage and kind of explain your background story, and then we'd love to get into what you've experienced in your life.
Well, I'll try to make it as short as possible. I grew up in socialist and communist Romania. I remember growing up and being really small, but still understanding what people around me were saying or not saying. I remember being 6 years old and watching my parents being politically correct outside of home. Not only my parents, but everybody around being very politically correct, giving away their rights. But inside the home, I will hear them whispering how horrible the government was. And the fact that tomorrow the government will ask more rights from them. And as a child watching them, I was petrified. I felt so insecure. I felt like my life didn't count for my parents because they were not strong enough to defend me if something happened. And for the government, I was nothing. But also I discovered that a fire started to burn inside of me. And I wanted to find out why the adults around me know the truth, but they are too afraid to speak about the truth. And I want to say to your audience, stop just a little bit and think about your actions and your attitude are important to people around you, coming from maybe your children to your relatives to people around you. Are you spreading courage and determination to fight for the freedom that we receive in America like nowhere in the world? Or are you spreading fear and ready to give up all the rights? That little tiny girl that watched my parents in terror is saying to you today, no, fight. Fight for something beautiful that we receive, America's freedom. Going back
Wow.
to this.
Wow. Now, can I just ask too, why were your parents so scared at that moment? Did you ever find out, or would they be thrown in jail? Would they be ostracized from the public circle? What would the punishment be for them if they had spoken out?
They were afraid that they would lose their job. They were afraid that the government will put them on the blacklist. And sometimes I believe, like humans, sometimes we magnify what if, and we stop living and being fearful. So, and in the same time, I watched later on in life people that spoke up, being put to jail or disappearing, and that was because at that time socialist and communist government already was in power. And when the government is in power, and the government builds, socialist and communist government builds an army that there is no freedom, takes guns from you, takes all the freedom, and you become a puppet. But at that time, as a 6 years old, I remember also I had lots of relatives, lawyers, and they were answering questions all the time at our family reunion, about different questions. And I was thinking, but they were not courageous to speak up. But still, because I look at them and I thought they have answers to all those questions. So in my mind, I thought, I found the solution. I'm going to go to law school and I'm going to find the truth and I'm going to speak up for the truth. So I went to law school, and I want to say, when people read Saving My Assassin, my book, I want them to pay attention, because I know there are lots of lies, lots of brainwashing of young people and people of all ages about socialism. In socialists and communists, you do not decide your profession. Not at all. In socialists and communists, the government is the one who decides your profession. At that time, I didn't know anything about this, and I am so grateful that I didn't know. I didn't know that before the government will allow me to take the entrance test to law school, they will look in my file. Let me explain what the file means. From the time that you're born, from the time that you died, the communist socialist government has a file on you and put all kind of things, and you have no access to correct a mistake or something. But they were looking for three things in my file. The first one was if my parents organized outside of home any kind of revolt against the socialist communist government. The second one was if my parents were ever reported by their own children for saying something inside of home. And the third one was if my parents were Christians. So I passed the test. And I went to law school. I graduated after 4 years in law school. And again, when you graduate from law school in socialist or a communist country, you don't pick and choose like in capitalist. The government decides for you. So I became an attorney, and for a year and a half or something, I was very determined with everything that I learned from law books to practice in a courtroom. So every morning I will go full of hope, thinking that with everything that I learned, I'm going to find the truth and speak up for the truth. And after a year and a half, I remember coming to my office and being very discouraged. I am not a quitter. I am a fighter. But that day I was so discouraged. I put my briefcase on my assistant desk and I said to her, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I can't find the truth. And she looked up at me like, what are you dreaming? Are you living somewhere else? Come back to reality. And she gave me 3 files and she said, 3 clients will come to see you. 1 is already in your office. So very disappointed, I took the files and I went inside of my office, and I recognized going inside of my office the client that was there. I have been working with him for a long time, and something was different about that client. But I always said to myself, this client, it's a little bit crazy. I need to fix him. Because in a land of hopelessness, he was full of hope. In a land of lack of joy, he had joy and confidence. And I never understood. I thought I labeled him crazy. And I thought that's my job, that one day I'm going to fix him. But I always have clients after clients, and I never had the time to do it. But that day, as I walked in my office, I stood at my desk, I looked straight into his face, full of joy, full of peace. And I remember all of a sudden saying to him, I wish I had in my life what you have in your life. And he looked up at me and said, do you go to church? And I stared at him thinking, I knew you are crazy. I don't know why I asked you this question, because I didn't see any connection between going to church and having joy and peace and all those things. But he wrote something on a piece of paper and said, would you come to our church next Sunday? And all of a sudden I hear myself saying, yes, I'm going to come to your church. The craziest thing that a lawyer in socialist communist Romania would say. Why? Because a month before, the dictator Nicolae Ceausescu declared himself God and required us to worship him alone. And here I am saying, yes, I don't know what you're doing at your church, but I will come there. I was that determined. And more than that, next Sunday I was at his church. And I remember the pastor opening the Bible and saying, Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. And that day, I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I also understood that it was God who put the fire in me, and it was God who appointed me to find the truth, Jesus Christ, who is a real God, not a notion in a law book. And from that day on, I didn't have to look for clients, because nobody will take clients like who will take Bibles from one church to another just to transport the Bible from a church to another for vacation Bible schools, or churches who will ask the government to allow them to maintain the church. And the government will put them on the waiting list until the church will be in such a disrepair that the government will say, oh, your building is in such a disrepair, we need to demolish and take your land. And many, many other cases. Doctors who will give a prescription to their clients, and with the prescription, a little note of a Bible verse. Many of them were put in jail or threatened to lose their jobs as teachers and others. So I defended those clients, and surely and shortly after that, I became the target of the communist government, who will arrest me daily, put me under house arrest, or when they arrested, they will torture, beaten. And at the end, because from what I have done, even though it was unknown to me, because I live surrounded by the Berlin Wall, no knowledge of what was outside of the Berlin Wall and what the freedom looked like. Many of my cases became part of the United Nations reports on human rights violations and part of United States Department of State's documents on violation of human rights.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Congressman.
So I have a few questions before, because I that's a whole new topic, but just going back a little bit, you said that the communist regime would look into people's backgrounds before allowing them to go to law school and become attorneys. One of those things was if they had Christian parents. Why did they not want people who had faith in their life to be able to become lawyers?
To be a lawyer under socialist and communist, and it's everywhere. And I found out this in the interrogation room. It's a privilege that the socialist government gives you to be loyal to the government and to fight against so-called dissidents. The reason the government does not like Christians to be lawyers or judges or prosecutors is because a real Christian is controlled only by God, and The government cannot control a Christian. A Christian knows the Bible, knows the Lord, and will respect and honor the government. But when the government will ask you to cross the line and to worship them or to do something against God, then you have to stand up and you have to remain on God's principle and support the consequences. And not only that, but when you do that, you become a light in the darkness. You become someone like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and people will see the power of God in you, and the government does not like that.
Okay. Okay. That's what I thought. Now, what also piqued my interest is you mentioned you randomly went to church after he invited you that day. And it reminded me of just so many young people will reach out to me. And as silly as it seems compared to your story, people in America are scared to even share a social media post that might expose them for being more conservative leaning or being against leftism and socialism and communism onto social media and their platforms, or they're scared to speak up in classes on college campuses, or they're scared to speak up in their social circles or at the family dinner table or at the workplace. And for me, I think a lot of people are having a hard time getting that little push that they need to just make those first initial acts of courage to start speaking out and being emboldened in their own views. Now, what was it like for you knowing that if you went to church, it would be a major risk for you that first time? Can you put us in your mindset on how you made that decision to go?
Like you build your physical muscles, you build your faith muscles by actually standing up and walking in the way of Christ, with Christ. That what he said. At the beginning, it is very frightening because you might think that you are alone. But as you stand up and kindly and politely present your faith, or if people don't listen, you close your mouth, but you show your faith through your deeds, people will attack you even more. And as you in love your enemies or your opponents, they will push even more. And through the Holy Spirit, God will give you power to love them more, until at a point where they will look at you and said, what's wrong with this person? I have done everything that was possible. I have been the meanest person to this person, and she is kind to me. And at that point, people will ask you why. Why are you doing this? And you have the opportunity to share your faith with them. And they will be some of them might make fun of you, but the majority of them will see God in you. They will want to have that power that will make them strong and courageous as you. It's a process. And if you don't start now, when people just make fun of us, they are maybe here and there, they oppose us. If you wait until persecution comes, it will be too late, and fear will take you down on the slippery slope. The best way right now is to take the Bible and learn who God is. Take them, trust him as his word. And when he said, do what he's asking you to do it, and watch the miracles and the protection. You know, we talk many times about Psalm 91. That's what he promised us, that he will protect us. And see how God will whisper to you, will open doors, will help others, Christians. And I don't know if you heard the expression, if she stands up, I will stand up too.
That's beautiful. I hope that that changes a few people's mind that are listening right now that maybe haven't spoken up yet to anybody out there who's debating on whether or not to do it. How I'm curious now. So you go to the church, you start representing and standing up for these churches. How long was it before the government started to target you and your first arrest? What was that like? And can you walk us through what it was like to be arrested for what thought crime? For what did they claim that it was?
First of all, I want to say to everyone that I am under 5 feet tall, and
I'm
I
5 feet
was
tall too.
under 5 feet tall, and I was 82 pounds in Romania.
Oh, I'm not
So,
82 pounds.
so you can imagine that I didn't impress anyone. And at that time, the government believed that, oh, I am just someone who wants attention. They have no idea of the power of Christ in me. To be honest, I believe that at that time I didn't know the power of Christ. I knew what God asked me to do. I had seen his miracles and powers and opening door every single time. And I believe that when you exercise that obedience, you know, the Bible tells us that God called David a man after his own heart. And do you know why? The Bible tells us because God said, because David did everything that God asked him to do. So, in other words, forget about your past, forget about your fearful yesterday. Start today and do what God is asking you to do. And when you do what God is asking you, He will make you a David, because your desire is to do what God asks you to do. I believe that that's what God did in my life. And for a period of time, the entire time, I was surrounded by secret police. At the beginning, I was not that aware of that, because they will mingle with people in the street. And as I was talking with my clients on the street, I didn't know that I was supervised. They also use different kind of people. For example, I was at the stoplight, and all of a sudden, a man, like a beggar, pushed me in the intersection to create a impression of an accident.
Hmm.
And later on, I learned that the government used Securitate, military forces, on military forces in different ways, like beggars. There will be others dressed in suits, others mingling with people and so forth, and sometimes even friends and relatives will be used for that. So at the beginning, I was not even aware. Later on, they will follow me everywhere, at church or at work. Later, they will come late in night in my home and move the furniture to
Oh.
make sure that I know that they were there.
Oh.
Sometimes when I was at church, they will come and eat my food and leave the plates. I mean, the mental pressure in the beginning was in a different way that later was with arresting me and torturing and beating me. So
Now, how long did this go on? Was it months or
the entire time that I was in Romania, the
wow?
entire
And
time.
what's the name of did they have a name like the KGB and
Yes, it's called Securitate. The
Okay.
KGB was for Romania Securitate. It was a special forces that the dictator used for people like me that he will label enemies of the state, because I
Wow.
was defending Christians and human rights cases, and I was exposing him, and I was considered an enemy of the state
Wow.
because
And
only two
how
rights.
old were you at the time? Did you live alone or did you have
Okay, no, I was not alone. I was married, and I want to say that I was very young, because in Romania at that time, from the time that you graduate from 12th grade, you are allowed to go directly to graduate school. We did not have college at that time, and I was very young because I started first grade by the time I was 5.5 or something like this. So
Mm.
by the time I graduated from law school, I was 24 years old. So when I started to defend Christians, I was 25 years old. I was very young. I was, like I said, skinny and a woman, which is nobody under socialists. It's not. It's a lie that they said, "Oh, you're gonna have more rights under socialists." No, and for that reason, they thought, "Oh, I will disappear in few months." They had no idea about the power of God in me, who sustained me the entire time.
Wow. Okay. So when did they first go to arrest you? Did you do something extreme that pushed them over the edge, or did they just slowly start to build the record of you?
They started to build the record of me, and the fact that what happened is, as when God gives you an assignment, He's not going to give you the blueprint. He's going to give you step by step, and you have to trust Him. And I do remember as I started, people will come with their cases, Christians persecuted. The first thing that you do as a as a lawyer, you go and find out if there is a law protecting them, because under socialists we were never taught about the human rights and religious rights.
Oh.
Never, never.
Mm.
We never learn in law school. So I had to go to the library and try to figure out if I can find. But God is in charge, and He will provide everything. All those laws that protected Christians and human rights, they were adopted during the capitalist era, were still in the book under socialists, with the idea to lie to the Western world that we have them, but no lawyer uses them. But God had a specific way to do it.
Now, I'm kind of curious about this. So you grew up in that country under those circumstances. Had you ever read things like the US Constitution, anything from the Enlightenment era, anything from America's founding, or even just the values of the West, classical liberalism? Did you know any of that stuff, or was it
No,
pretty
we were not
blocked off?
allowed to learn English. We had to learn Russian, we were forced, and we were not allowed to have dollars in our home. We will be arrested and put to jail, or gold, or English literature,
Wow.
because by doing that, we were not loyal to the government, and we were curious to know what our enemies, because America and the Western civilization was labeled by the dictator as our enemies. What would you like to know about our enemies when the government tells you everything about the enemies? You don't, if you want to know, you are a spy, so you go to jail or you disappear.
Wow. So can you remember anything that they had said about America? I remember hearing in Cuba that they called us the evil empire, like in Star Wars.
Uh-huh.
So did
Yes.
you hear anything about
Yes,
America back
I
then?
I remember that they call evils, and they allowed us to watch the movie on the Dallas, and the
Oh,
reason, yes, the reason they allowed us to do this is to show us that Americans are all under promiscuity. They have guns and kill each other. They don't
Oh,
have a moral. They don't love their country to put all the things together. Look, there are some rich people with swimming pool and everything, and others are so poor and everything. Would you like to live in a society like this? That was the only reason for us to see that Dallas
wow.
movie. Yeah. So and
Wow.
then
Well, sorry to distract. So getting back to your arrest and everything, when did that happen and what was that like on that day?
first of all, when they arrested me, they never said the reason for why I was arrested. They
Okay.
never. They will arrest me for hours. They will beat me, and then they will ask me to clean myself up in order to go to court. So I never knew how long it's gonna be, why they arrested me, and everything. Um, but God used the time that I was arrested to build the faith in Him, and also to express God's power in me. Because I remember, like in the movie, there will be good guys and bad guys. The bad guys will hit my head to the table, my back to the walls, to the point that it was very hard for me to breathe. Will slap me, will do absolutely everything that was possible. I will be full of blood, and then the good guys will say, "Oh, he didn't mean to do that. Just sign this paper. Sign this paper that you are crazy, and everything will be okay because you make the dictator, a center of attention, and that's not right, and so forth." So they will do that, but in all this situation, God taught me something that I never thought. You read in the Bible and you said, yeah, it's in the Bible. Love your enemies. Yeah. But in those situations full of blood and full of pain, God whispered to me, tell them that I love them. And I remember looking straight into their eyes with blood on and all over me and saying, I don't like what you're doing, but God loves you and I choose to love you. And they will be crying, turning their eyes. They didn't know what to do. They were all strong people, 6 feet tall, guns around them with a desire to go up in their rank and everything, but they didn't know what to do. I didn't hate them. I didn't say a bad word to them. And I really believe that I was there for a reason beyond my confinement there. And maybe in their eyes, only heaven I will find out, in their eyes, they will think she has more courage than we have, you
Yeah,
know.
I it reminds me. There's a frequent saying throughout history that people carrying out bad deeds were just following orders. We see that today. We saw it in Nazi Germany. We saw it in the communist regimes of the 20th century. Did you get the sense that these men were just fully indoctrinated into the mindset of supporting the communist regime? Were they fully passionate and like wholeheartedly into it? Or do you think that they were chagriningly following orders because they just thought that that was the right thing to do?
I believe that they had the desire, they were brainwashed, and they had the desire to um, to have even more power that they had, to show that they had power. They wanted to break me, and they wanted to please the dictator, and they wanted to be rewarded. Uh, in fact, people, as they will read my book, Saving My assassin wrote a chapter in my book, and he explained exactly, more than I can explain in my words, how the socialist communist government captured his mind with free stuff when he was a student, and gradually they make a monster out of him. How he tortured and killed people, and how he was willing to do everything for the dictator. Yeah,
Wow.
I believe that young people in America, they have no idea that when they believe those those people that divide and one group to go against another and to physically, verbally or physically abuse them and everything, that will not stop there. You will become, if you follow them, you will become a puppet in their hands, and you will do things that you never imagined that you will do in your life. I had seen that in so many uh, people in Romania, and they will do not only against strangers, they will do against their own family, because every time they will betray someone, that will be a badge for them that they love so much the dictator or their leader, that they will so-called tell the truth about their own family.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, from that, do you think that there is a similarity between the early behavior we're seeing in America these days and what has taken place throughout history? Is it too extreme to make that comparison, or are you concerned with the behavior that you see? A lot of people say, "Oh, it's just cancel culture today," and you get removed from social media. I would argue it's totalitarianism, and that we're seeing the removal of anybody who commits political wrongthink from the public square and from positions of power now. And it really worries me. Am I right in being worried about this?
I believe that we as Christians, we have the solution to the problem,
Okay.
and we need to speak up. We need to make sure that people know that we love them before we want them to be correct or to understand something. If we want them to understand the atrocities of communists or socialists, or if we want them to know God, whatever we want, first they have to know that where they are screaming or doing or saying different things, we love and we respect them as humans. And then we need to ask questions, because when the dictator sent the assassin to my office to kill me, he came exactly when it was the time for my assistant to leave. So as she introduced him to my office, she left and he heard that she closed the door to my office. And he pulled his jacket, took his gun, and pointed to my face and said, "I'm not your client. I'm here to kill you." And he started to scream. He started to say how he's gonna kill me, and he was full of joy that he will gain the respect of the dictator. He will be number one in his team and everything. And he was so determined to do this. And as I watched them, my knees were shaking. My heart was in my ears. I was thinking today it's going to be the day. So many of my friends, so many of my relatives, and even acquaintances, even enemies, told me many times, "Stop fighting a powerful dictator. We're going to find you dead." And I believed that there was a day I will be dead. And it was so much noise inside of me and outside of me, screaming and everything. And I heard the whisper of God in all of this saying, "Share the gospel." And as I look at him as a human being terrorized, trying to find his purpose in life, I look at him and I said, I was 5 feet tall, under 5 feet tall, 82 pounds. He was 6'10" tall and strong like a football player. No way to fight with him. No way to run
Wow.
away from him. So I remember looking at him and say, "I know you have a job. but I want to share something with you. And I said, would you let me share? And he looked at me and said, yes. And as I shared the gospel with him, he put the gun down, his shoulders relaxed. And as I watched him, as I said the gospel word by word from the Bible, I was thinking, I was seeing him melting under God's power. I have never seen that in my life. And as I watched this, I was saying, when I finish, he's going to kill me. And I forgot the gospel. And I just said words from I paraphrased. And as I paraphrased two sentences, he came back again to, I'm here to kill you. I pray like never before in my life. And the Lord brought me the gospel and I said it word by word. And he accepted Christ right there. And I will tell you, years later, he came to Dallas, Texas, to my office, because now I'm a lawyer in Dallas, Texas. I went to law school in America, and I didn't recognize him. He came with a case, but I didn't recognize him until he said to me and showed me his Securitate ID. He said, Virginia, don't you recognize me? And when I saw the picture, it was like I relived again that moment in my law office in Romania. And as I shared with him that I'm writing my book, he said, would you allow me to write a chapter? And he wrote a chapter in my book, and Saving My Assassin. So now you have from a communist, ferocious communist, wanted to please a dictator, his point of view and exactly how socialists and communists change his life, make him a monster, but how Christ changed him into a child of God. And what God is doing with him in Romania, building churches and being a pastor and doing all kind of things.
Wow.
It helps me to say, don't look at your opponents like powerful people. They are people looking for their identity. They believe in a wrong things, that the government will give them something that will satisfy them. Look at people that are in need to find who they are in Christ, who they are as humans. And God will use you to change their lives. Isn't that amazing? That we have the solution and we can be used by God. Christians need to stand up. Even right now, during this time in America, where they make fun of us or they threaten that they will take our jobs away or kids away or whatever they want to say. If all of us will stand up, then people will look and say the power that is in us, the love that we have for people. We don't hate people even when they hate us. And that's how we win for America. It's true that we want representatives to be good Christians and to do good. And we want the same things for president and for Supreme Court and everything. But everything starts with us, wherever God placed us. And we will change America from, your job, your business, your school, your place as a nurse, sharing the love of Christ. If people don't want to listen to what we said about Christ, with our deeds, and America will be changed. God used me to change Romania. One little tiny person, 82 pounds, under 5 feet tall person. I came to this country without knowing one word in English, no $1 in my pocket, with 2 girls under 10 years old, and I was pregnant with my son. And as we came here, my husband was with us, and we came here shortly after that. My husband left us, and I have to raise my kids by myself as a single woman. I learned English. I went back to law school. I have a law firm. I wrote a book, my memoir that changes people's life. I go and speak everywhere. Why? Because I live in America, and America gives a chance and an opportunity to everyone to rebuild their lives. I raised 3 kids. The first daughter graduated like me from Harvard Law School. My second daughter, no, my first graduated from SMU. My second daughter graduated from Harvard Law School, and my son from United States Air Force Academy, and serves America. That's America, the best place in the world. It's time for us to keep it the way it is and even create more freedom. We have a responsibility. We receive so much, and we need to fight for what is right. And the time it's now. And for each one of us, it's not to wait for anyone else to do it. We have to do our part. And if each one of us will do our part, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that it's not going to be, maybe with pain and suffering. But at the end, it's going to be glorious because we serve a God who never lost a battle. And we are in a winning team. We might not see it now. I didn't see the winning, when I was in the interrogation room or beaten or tortured or under house arrest, or at the point gun to my assassin when he came to my office. But at the end, it was, just remember, dictator who had everything at his fingertips, money, a powerful army, everything, lying to the entire, Western civilization. It's dead. And by the grace of God, I am alive. There is hope, and there is hope because there is hope in God. And this is what we go right now is just a test. And we have to pass that test by trusting God, by standing up in love and showing that love to people that we don't think that are lovable. But at one point in our life, we were unlovable too. So victory is ours. We shouldn't be afraid. We should not be afraid.
I love that. I hope everybody goes out and starts leading the charge now in their own ways for this, because you inspire me. I've got to say, I find a lot of inspiration in all of your life story. I'm 24, almost 25 right now, 5 feet tall. And I always talk about how I carry a pistol on me, appendix carry, usually concealed carry, for my own safety. And I can't imagine having a gun facing me. And even just to backtrack on what we had been talking about, young people these days in America are scared to even voice their own opinions. Meanwhile, you were having a gun pointed at your face and you still decided to speak the gospel. You still decided to double down and promote your values, even as you were facing pretty much imminent death. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. And if you don't mind, we always try to not be just a complaining, whining, frustrating kind of podcast. We always want to provide solutions and calls to action for people. What would your immediate short-term solution be for every young person out there, every American of all ages, that they could do immediately today or this week? And then what's the long-term solution that you see? So a short-term and a long-term that everybody can start to act on after listening. Not including your book, because I think everybody already has to go buy your book. But what's another one?
Okay, well, I will say if people want to go to buy the book, it's virginiaprodanbooks.com/product/book. If you read the book, it will encourage you so much because so many of the things that are in the book will give you the courage and to say, oh, that's exactly what the government is doing now. First of all, I want people to know that socialists and communists and the leaders promoting, they have years, generations of training. They know how to lie to you. They know how to capture you, to put you in prison. I call Romania a prison land, a land of lies and a prison land. And what you have around us today is people are lying, media is lying, and they try to put us into a prison land. Prison land starts here, okay? We receive freedom in Christ. In order to combat the fear that is normal, it's a feeling, you have to exercise the freedom that you have to live under. You don't have to violate the law or to be rude or mean, but you have to know the Constitution, you have to know your rights, and you have to stand up when the government crosses and wants to wants to take your rights. And you have to understand, make a journal, take notes of what you did today, and be grateful if you had one step, and if tomorrow you have 2 steps back. Be grateful of the first one and try to do it again and again. Create around you a group of friends that will support you, they will cheer you, they will be with you, and not they will tear you down and say, oh, you shouldn't have said that, take that down, do these things and everything. And see how you will advance on this. Don't ever believe that you are by yourself alone. And if you feel alone, go to virginiaprodanbooks.com, and there is a section there where you can contact me and ask me any questions. And I'll be happy to answer all the questions that you might have. In the long term, remember that nobody can take those rights from you unless you give them away. So stop complaining that the government is taking the rights. Think and pay attention. Maybe it's you giving them away. And if you make that distinction and you said, no, I will not do this, and you make friends and people around you, and be involved, be vocal, be part of your school committee or your job or whatever you do, because people will be encouraged by. There is a very short period of time that we have where the government is still not in control to come and arrest us without a warrant. That's what socialist is, or to take our children away, or to take your diploma away or something. Don't wait until that time. Be truthful to what you believe. Read the Constitution, read your rights, learn about the power and the skills that God gave you, that you can use them, and you will create such a revolution around you. Because when people will see that you are strong and courageous, others will be strong and courageous. Don't wait for anyone else. Do it for yourself. And even when people will be against you, like I mentioned, there will be a point where they will admire you, because to be strong and courageous under opposition is something really special. It's a light in the darkness.
I love that. And I think courage being contagious is a very popular theme that's going to continue to be a popular theme for many years to come, especially in America. Virginia, thank you so much for telling us your story.
In my book, I said that fear and faith are contagious.
Oh, really? Perfect.
Yes. In my book, I said fear and faith are contagious. And if you it depends what you are sharing around. You are sharing fear, or you are sharing around you, faith that makes you strong. So it's important for people to remember that Yes, in fact, that's what I said. Freedom is precious to those who don't have it. You can find this on my memoir, Saving My Assassin, on page 287. Freedom is precious to those who don't have it. If the truth lives in me, lies cannot overpower me. If my soul is free, no power on earth can enslave me. If God gives me victory, defeat is impossible. And that is true for each one of us. And because it is true, it is, you know, what we are called to. And America will be a better place, not by because we will keep our mouth shut, because we'll speak the truth in love.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to read the book. And I know a lot of people, a lot of young girls especially, reach out to me and ask what I'm reading these days. So I'm going to be reading this book soon. I'll share the link onto my social pages. I will make sure we include the link to buying the book in the description of this podcast, and the video version will be on YouTube. So we'll share that there as well. Virginia, thank you so much for your time and for so many really important lessons that you shared with us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Morgan, I want to thank you so much for giving me an opportunity and others opportunities on this platform, and for everything that you are doing, for the fact that you are vocal, you want to speak the truth in love, and you are such an example for so many young people. And I appreciate so much what you are doing, because without you, I wouldn't have been here to share that. So your role is important, and I believe and I hope that other young people like you will take your brave example and will do what you are doing, because this country and our lives and the future of America is precious, and freedom is precious.
Thank you.